Well, we're live. Welcome to the Super League Awards 2021. I told you I'd do that. Yeah. Simon Johnson liked my tweet when I said that.
Did he?
He's like the top man at the Rugby Football League. He's been on this programme.
Was he sniggering when he
Well,
was?
I don't know. He liked it by mistake, obviously. Welcome one and all, to the pre-Grand Final extravaganza. I think we've all turned up in beige jumpers, which is
Green.
blending into the background. John Davidson is back in studio for the first time in a while.
Soon to be deported.
Hashtag deport Johnny Davidson. If you've not seen that, by the way, listeners, viewers, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. It is Grand Final week. We're
We
excited.
posted bail. He's here.
Priti Patel is not aware that he is here, so that is the good news. As soon as she does find out, should we talk about Penrith first before we get into anything else? Because John's Australian; he'll have watched it and everything. Penrith Panthers, Phil Gould's favourites.
5-year plan that took 10 years. Yeah.
Well, here we get a 5-year plan. It's binned after 2, so.
What's the plan?
What is the plan? Souths didn't win, which we're all disappointed about because they've got one Burgess left, I think. So, how's Sam doing on reality TV in Australia?
Well, I think he was in Thailand watching it with his old mate Rusty, and I think one of the funniest things of the Grand Final, apart from anyone who didn't see it, I'm just doing around the social media, Jonathan Thurston's interviewing techniques after the game where he forgets to put the microphone to the player's mouth. Which goes to show...
And the director shouts down his ear and you can see his face go.
Yeah. Shows working in the media is harder than perhaps some ex-players think. Russell Crowe, I think he has the tendency to tweet the full score after games.
When Souths win.
Yes, still waiting. But no, in all seriousness, what a game. I thought it was... I really didn't care who won as a Manly fan, although I did want the Panthers to win, but fantastic contest. Went down to the last tackle, didn't it, the last set. Thought Adam Reynolds was going to kick that from the sideline because he's such a fantastic
Or
kicker.
Even a 2-point drop goal.
Well, indeed,
yeah, that was the other.
Which he went for.
But the intercept and then Cody Walker pretty much made up for it, setting up the final try. Yeah, I just thought it was a fantastic game. There wasn't really any refereeing issues, which is a rarity. If anyone remembers the Canberra Roosters 6 again and other games, just tough and physical. The defence was at the forefront, and I thought a fitting end. Obviously not for Wayne Bennett and Benji Marshall, but a fitting end for the Panthers, who obviously lost last year, and the redemption.
Massively entertaining game, even though it was low scoring. Again, proving that if you have both sides of the coin right, it's an incredibly gripping watch. I think one of the best games I've seen this season. Again, you can't base everything on stats, but if your highest intensity game is your last game of the season, you've got something right.
Definitely.
Some real superstars to watch out. We've been talking about Stephen Crichton all year, and he again looked world class. It'd be great as and when he comes over and plays for Samoa against England in the World Cup. The Cleary story is amazing, that the last time Penrith won it was a father and son combination, and it has been again this time. Jerome Luai is just one of the characters of Rugby League. Brian Toto proposing to his girlfriend on the final
Don't get
whistle.
that every grand final, do you?
Well,
and
what
also,
would happen if he'd have lost?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not marrying you. Here's your ring.
Yeah.
Bugger off.
If I'm getting a ring, you're getting a ring.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not getting a ring. Okay, forget it then. But that was great television, great drama, and clearly, I think what we got was everything we would hope that we're going to get this weekend. That the two best teams. Again, Melbourne probably deserve to be there across it, but the two best teams over the playoff series produced an absolute classic on the final night of the season. And I loved it because, like you, I didn't have a horse in the race and could just sit back and enjoy them belting the hell out of each other.
Yeah, I think it was a fitting, as you said, Melbourne will probably however many games they won in a row. What was it?
16. 19.
Yeah, it was equal to record. But the fact that Penrith beat them, it was fitting that that they were the best team.
And again, it prolongs this idea that the salary cap brings you different winners more often than it doesn't.
Yeah.
And clearly, you know, Melbourne have been exceptional and they've won it more times than perhaps they should have done, which says more about them, I think, than the salary cap. But overall, again, we've now had, first time since 2003 that Penrith have won it, and you're going, you can celebrate that as a sport. The television viewing figures, I gather, have been astronomical for the grand final, and I know that's partly because people from Sydney couldn't go, so they had to watch it on the telly.
Yeah, it was at Suncorp.
But the atmosphere looked great. You'll know better than I will who the people were that were performing in the pre-game, but that looked good to me. I don't know who they are.
Ian Moss, formerly member of Cold Chisel.
There you go.
Jimmy Barton, Australian band.
But it was good, and again, all of the cultural awareness before
Billy
the
Idol
game.
wasn't allowed in, obviously, with COVID.
It was good. I loved it. I thought the standard was brilliant.
I think the interesting point, as you mentioned, about Penrith and they are a development club.
Yes.
I think the common stat is, whether it's amateurs or what, there's more people playing rugby league in the Penrith area than there is of all of England. So they've always had great local juniors. They've always produced a lot of players, but they're not a heavyweight, and they've never been a heavyweight.
Was it 13 out of their 17 had come through their own system, which is just ridiculous.
And if not from that area, you know, the Mount Druitt area, Penrith, Blacktown, Light, the Luais, the Totos, they've joined the club as teenagers from Dubbo, Isaiah Yeo, those kind of players, and all played in the under-17s, the under-19s, the under-21s all together, and they just have that bond, and it really shows. And it shows, you know, to invest in your own local, you know, your own academy, your own youth. It does pay off.
And Souths were great, you know, real worthy opponents. Again, a fabulous story. We talk about Wayne Bennett and his influence, and we may well joke about, you know, him being a Clint Eastwood lookalike, and the age of 71, he never smiles, he never gives in. But it's another fantastic story to take a club that very few had predicted before the season started would be in a grand final, to within a drop goal away from at least taking it to extra time. No, it was brilliant.
Particularly without Latrell Mitchell.
Yep.
And if you look at them, you know, the last couple of years they've lost Sam Burgess and Greg Inglis, two probably all-time greats.
Absolutely.
And they've managed to stay at the top. So I think one thing, Benji Marshall, you know, what a fantastic player he's been, you know, for the Tigers, for New Zealand, for all his clubs.
Yep.
A little bit sad perhaps that someone could entice him to play out of season super, because I think he would. He's one of those players people would.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility. Because I reckon he's got another season in him.
Wakefield, yeah.
Well, he was supposed to go to Lee at the start of the season, wasn't he? If you believe, you know, nonsense.
No, I don't. I think he likes his contracts being
He
fulfilled,
is the kind of signing that Wigan should make. No doubt we'll talk about their new coaching appointments, and the fact that Lee Breers is on their staff, which is great, because the only thing I ever wanted was Lee Breers to stay in the game. And if they are going to play with any degree of attacking flair, then Breers is the right guy to have behind the scenes. But if he was to be able to work with a Benji Marshall type player, even if it's for just 1 year, clearly Wigan have got financial issues the same as everybody else. But if you're going to make a statement signing and you're investing for 1 year only, I'd go for Benji.
Well, I think Benji's the kind of signing, much like a Sonny Bill Williams, and for anyone who's seen Sonny Bill Williams in rugby union as a pundit, Benji is probably 50 times better as a pundit. Doesn't use the word bro in every sentence, which is a plus. He's a media, you know, he's on Fox League, and he's really well spoken, and I think the media would lap him up. He's an intelligent guy.
Yeah.
He knows the game, so I think there's benefits as well as, you know, whether he was coaching kids on the side or, you know.
I think if you're losing Jackson Hastings and you could bring in Benji Marshall for just 1 year to work under a new coaching team.
He's a grand final winner. He's a World Cup winner.
I'd be tempted.
Yeah.
Get a bit of Catalan.
Is that Ian? Hello, Ian. Inside Benji Marshall.
Good replacement for James Maloney. He was obviously his last game of a much storied career.
Isn't Mitchell Pearce linked with the Dragons?
Mitchell, as I understand it, Mitchell Pearce, Wigan are a club interested, but I think Mitchell Pearce, the salary he'll command, I think he'll have offers in the NRL. I think he wouldn't be looking to leave at this point. I think it's very unlikely he'll be in Super League next year. Not impossible, but I wouldn't be betting on it. I think he'll, if not at Newcastle. Ash Taylor, not of the same pedigree.
But clearly it'd be a wise investment for a Super League club.
Yeah, I mean, he was hailed as the next big thing in halfbacks a few years ago for Queensland at the Broncos. It hasn't really worked out well for him, but certainly got some skill.
It's going to seem that they, because obviously the NRL, the superior competition to Super League, but they brought in one of Super League's great innovations of teams wearing similar colours. Why couldn't one of the teams wear white shorts? Why did South have to wear the evil bunny as opposed to the nice bunny? Why? Lord Sugar was behind South.
Yes, he was. I saw that. Is he a mate of old Rusty's? Or?
Well, he's been out there doing Celebrity Apprentice. It's on BBC One when the Super League show's supposed to be on.
I think the funny thing with Russell Crowe is whenever, particularly when he bought South late noughties, any kind of celebrity friend. So he brought Tom Cruise to a game. He brought Pamela Anderson, Snoop Dogg. So they're just all. I mean, the really only real proper celebrity fan is Hugh Jackman, who is an actual Manly fan.
And Thomas Keneally.
Yeah, he's probably not as well known,
Manly
except for those who are readers. But yes,
Lord Sugar's social media game would fit in with many Australians in the NRL.
Clive James was a St George fan.
He was, Cobra. Yeah. We're just naming celebrities who like rugby league.
Australians who love
We haven't got any. We haven't got any. Michael Parkinson, that's about it. He's
also, I think I can't remember the
Richard
exact.
Harris.
Yeah.
He was on the board at Wakefield.
Well, that's you would have been going for South for Jason
Dimitri,
Wakefield legend.
Yeah. Indeed, kept us up. £1 million game, the original £1 million game. Where did it go?
I'm actually writing a profile on him, and John Key, among others, have tipped him to be one of the great coaches. So. Obviously, he'll be leading South Sydney next year. It'll be interesting to see how he goes.
Why all the Wakefield fans want him at Belgium? No. It's not going to happen. Not that I don't want him, though.
Great appointment at Wakefield this week with Francis Cummins.
Yeah, former guest on here.
And I think Willie
Mike
Poaching
getting a promotion as well.
Just pleased to see Franny back in the game because he's a good young coach with great philosophy. Worked under a lot of coaches who like to attack first and. I think the two of them will be a great combination. And
Willie, I think you might have said, I might be paraphrasing you a little bit, nicest man in rugby league, and also the first ever Polynesian head coach in the professional game. Yeah. Which, considering we're in England and not in Australia and New Zealand, that's
big for Samoa.
Yeah, and well deserved because he's had a long apprenticeship, hasn't he? Yeah.
And already better than Tony Kemp's reign of terror in 2000. So. Not forgotten about that.
One of the great men is Will and Franny. It's a great combination.
We're all very excited. That's the Wakefield bit of the project. Chris Chester's at Lee.
But we don't know. That has to be the worst written press release of all time.
In what capacity?
I didn't see.
He's head of rugby. Does that mean he's coaching the first?
Not like when Kieran Cunningham was the head of rugby there. I hope it lasts longer.
Well, maybe they'll build a statue to him first.
I don't know if Kev the Saints fans knocked it down yet. So that's the NRL done.
Worth mentioning because it was great.
Yes.
Oh, worth mentioning also Peter Sterling. Sad to see his retirement. Makes me feel very old. But what a legend both as a player and as a pundit, as a commentator.
Can't believe he's been doing that for 30 years.
Yeah, well, you would remember. I remember him play. I remember watching him play when I was a kid, which was a long time ago, and obviously. A hero for Hull FC fans as well as Parramatta fans.
Amazing.
But
the guy who never signed for Leeds because he had a crook shoulder. We had him all lined up.
He had Cliffy.
He never came.
Cliffy was just as good, really.
Amazing, as almost as good a pundit as he was a player.
Yeah, I think
his analysis was just like the first of that breed to take the technology and actually explain to you what was happening. You suddenly went, I am seeing a completely different dimension to this game here because. He was brilliant.
I think the equivalent in Australia, maybe not exactly the same, but like a Richie Beno style, because he was obviously such a great player. Ray Warren never played the game, but he was part of the Immortals and four-time Grand Final winner, but also just amazing pundit.
And then went on the Footy Show and
good sense of humour.
Was prepared to show himself up.
Wear women's clothing. Yep.
Well, I think there's probably quite a few that do that in their private lives. But
that we
won't go there.
Apparently.
But no, he one of the and the thing as well is that he's getting out on his terms, which I quite like. Yeah. Because he could have stayed on at least for another however long he wanted to. He's 61.
Yeah.
He doesn't look it, does he? He doesn't look it.
No,
He's been bald for a long time.
The trouble is, I remember him with long,
flowing
blonde locks.
Yeah.
That's what just makes me feel old, the fact that he's got no hair. But, to say he's going to travel the world and he wants to spend, time playing a bit more golf.
Once he's out of lockdown.
Yeah. Once he's out of lockdown. I think he'll come and spend some time over here.
Well, he'll get offers from those people who put on those dinners, won't they?
Yeah, and I think he'll come and he'll speak brilliantly. And if you get the chance to see him, listener, go and see him because his tales are brilliant.
And he, at the Boulevard, was up against Wally Lewis when he made his debut for Wakefield in those famous 10 games.
In those halcyon days when the overseas players that we signed were actually the very best you could get hold of.
£1,000 a game, still got relegated. Great value for money there.
1,300.
1,300. More than some in Super League would be getting.
Because he got 1,000 from offer from Leeds and turned it down to take the bigger Wakefield offer.
Of course, you'd come to Wakefield.
Got sent off at Headingley.
What would you have done at Leeds? What would you have won there? Nothing. Don't know.
Story wouldn't have given him the ball.
No.
It's mine, you're not having it.
Have you spoken to the legend today?
Yesterday, I think. I can't remember what day it is.
Parental advisory if you've got the League Express this week. Graphic pictures of the legend. But he's all right, he's on the mend.
Yes, he's got COVID again.
Has he?
He's always been accused of being one-eyed, hasn't he? And now he's literally one-eyed. No, sorry. We wish him well.
He's all right.
Speedy recovery.
He's all right. No, it's quite good actually. I'll mention that to him.
We're looking forward to seeing him again. Get his take on whatever's going on. Should be glued to the England France games. France game was on the telly.
Big international.
The funny thing about that is, when that was announced a while ago, mooted, it kind of, well, it's an international. We were supposed to have a World Cup, but with Toulouse, on the cusp of Super League, Catalan's top of Super League. In the Grand Final.
It's a big.
There's
story.
actually, the likes of Artemburg and
absolutely,
and
it being played in Perpignan, where the scenes last Thursday, which I'm sure we'll talk about, were everything we wanted Super League to be when it was announced, and then you get on the back of that the World Cup 2025 bid, which I think there's going to be some political capital around the Test match, inviting some dignitaries from the French government to say, this is what we want you to support. It's a lot bigger than it was when it was announced, and now it's on the BBC, as is the women's game. So it's going to get terrestrial coverage, which is great. It's a big deal. Sean Wayne, obviously, has now done a press conference as England coach. Subsequently today, done one as the Wigan, was it Director of Leadership and
Management Director.
Management.
Yeah.
So there's
essentially he's coaching the coaches.
There's loads of stories, aren't there? Around that international, which is great.
I've been writing a grand final preview for the Eye and looking into the history of French Rugby League and not knowing as well as someone like yourself. And it's amazing, how big the game was there in the 50s and 60s, and they made 2 World Cup finals. But
30s, it was in danger of enveloping
the
rugby union.
Nazis.
But it was on the way to becoming, one of the most popular sports in the country, not just in the region that it's remained strong. Then in the 50s, when it regrouped, it had this astonishing tour to Australia, where Australians were actually packing out Sydney to see this brand of rugby that they'd never seen before. So we watch on and think, the Grand Final, it's something that we don't get over here. And they were flocking to the Sydney Cricket Ground to see these French tours.
And they were beating the Kangaroos regularly,
Well, they beat them on 2 tours, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then they were coming back to Marseille, and 30,000 people were greeting them off the ship.
It's crazy.
And you think, we had that. And not saying we'll get back to that, but we're on a road that could take us somewhere along that.
Well, I mean, obviously nothing's guaranteed on Sunday, but I think a lot of people can see the benefit of having 2 French teams in Super League and that sort of, presenting an image of...
One or two can't.
Yeah.
Don't set the Fed back.
No, one or two can't, who also may be chairman of Super League teams.
Yeah, I think from a neutral's point, I mean, what was it, 25 years ago when Super League started? It was Milan, it was Barcelona, it was Paris.
Well, if
obviously Paris only lasted 2 years.
If we're going to talk about,
we could have
the Dragons and Thursday night, because I actually think more important than all of the 4 semi-finals this week weren't great games. They went to form, which is fantastic because we've got the best 2 teams in each of the grand finals. Men's, women's, £1 million, and that's how it should be. But the big thing about Thursday night in Perpignan wasn't the quality or standard of the game, and hats off to Hull KR for getting to it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It was everything that surrounded the game. Those pictures that started coming in of the flares going off when the players were arriving.
Can you remember? I can't remember another Super League game, at least in the last 5 or 6 years, with a similar style of atmosphere. I mean, obviously there was 31,500 at the new camp. I was at that game, but the new camp is
it holds 100,000. Yeah.
But that, watching at home, the noise and the atmosphere was just amazing.
I thought the stands itself look. I mean, if you're a broadcaster, that's everything you want.
It is, yeah.
You want to see
the
colour, the vibrancy, the singing, the fact that when the camera spun round, there were as many kids at the front watching as there were, wizened old fools like me. It looked exactly what the vision of Super League was. Yes. When Maurice Lindsay stood there and announced we're having Super League and we're going to add the word European to it, everyone went there. And then we got Paris, which was sort of an expediency.
It was.
But we kicked off with 17,000 people in a stadium in Paris, and I don't care how many of them had free tickets. There were 17,000.
Apparently,
people
2,000 from Sheffield.
It looked.
2,000 away.
It looked.
Nothing against the Eagles now, but they get 500-600. So.
But how many teams take 2,000?
I know, it's amazing.
To any game.
Yeah.
And it looked great.
Yeah.
That was the vision of Super League 25 years later.
Maybe we're finally getting there, quarter of a century later.
Let's hope it's sustainable.
We're going to detour onto Wigan because Jewel has mentioned this on YouTube, on the chats. Wigan's appointment of Sean Wayne as Director of Leadership and Management feels like them trying not to say he's Director of Rugby and Head Coach if it goes tits up. It does appear that they've lost 2 or 3 years here of just wasting time. I know they won a League Leader Shield in that and nearly won a Grand Final, but we're back to where we were in effect. I know Sean Wayne's got a different job title, and he obviously had an opportunity with Scottish Rugby Union, and now he's the England head coach as well for the men. But we're back to where we were. It seems a bit hard.
Well, I think obviously Sean Edwards was supposed to be the saviour, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But I don't know Matty Pete, but obviously I don't want to say he's a Sean Wayne clone, but he's followed a very similar path to Sean Wayne. He's been at the club for a long time. He's worked in the youth team, the academy, and assistant. It seems like a natural kind of progression for someone who knows the club's culture. Wigan always like to promote from within, don't they? And getting Sean Wayne back on board makes sense. From what I understand, he'll be kind of like coaching the coaches because it is a young coaching staff. Sean O'Loughlin, Matty Pete, John Winder is gone. He was there for a long time, and Lee Breeze, who was a young coach as well.
I think that's the significant appointment today. I think there was always a chance that Sean Wayne was going to come back, but I think talking to some Wigan fans when they were knocked out the week before, the standard of rugby that they've been playing from a pure entertainment point of view, nothing to do with the results. I mean, again, the results have sort of held up over the time, but it's the fact that fans were getting really concerned about paying their season ticket money and not getting a lot back in return. Lee Breers, I don't think, would join that operation if he wasn't going to have a significant say in the manner and philosophy with which they're going to play. Clearly, because Sean Wayne is involved, because most of that coaching staff has come through that Wigan system, defence will be a priority because it always is. Sean O'Loughlin is going to instill that.
Yeah.
But I think having Breers on board is the right move. I also think that the Wigan have suffered the same that Leeds did when the likes of Sinfield, Peacock, Maguire,
happens in the salary cap sport.
That when you lose O'Loughlin, and clearly Luai, who's signed on for another year, which again I think they need him on the field. They need him to look after Harry Smith more than anything. When you lose that kind of experience and the people that embody the philosophy of the club, it's very, very hard to maintain or renew or change any of that. So I think with a group of young players that do still need a lot of moulding. I think there's some talented forwards there, but they seem to lose their way this year.
They're gaining experience. They're not at the finished article yet.
But what they need now is Sean Wayne back and go, look, you haven't performed last year. This is what you need to do. And he's going to tell you how to do it. And then if you don't do it, he's going to tell me. And then I'm going to tell you again how to do it.
Added to that...
And I could see that working.
Yeah, but added to that, Bevan French barely played, who probably should have been a man of steel last year. Joel Field barely played. And now you've
They
got...
were unlucky, and again, Tom Burgess, who took one of the marquee positions, but wasn't replaced when he couldn't.
I think that's the front
tough.
row. Obviously Tony Clubb's retired, Ben Flowers. He left, but
lost a lot.
Yeah, I think it's that experience in the forward pack, but they are, as you said, they've blooded a lot of young players, and it takes time.
But
I
think they need to go up a level.
Yeah.
I think the disappointment would be that they were very promising young players at the end of last season when they got to a grand final. Have any of them really progressed?
Yeah.
Are they knocking on the door of Sean Wayne's England or England Knights squad? Probably the only one is Kai Pearce-Paul, and actually he was one that they brought in rather than one that they've developed. So I think there's some potential there, but they need to change the philosophy, and they're going to do that with Breers, and obviously now clearly they're going to sign Benji Marshall, because we told them. We know they listen.
They do.
But they don't take any notes. It's no shit.
But I mean, why would you?
Exactly.
We know they listen, that's why they don't let you in. Wigan there, 4th in the table. Where will they be next year? Tune in and find out in 2022. I don't know how to go through the games. I think we'll start and build up to the grand final. But the awards last night we referred to at the start of the programme. Social media as ever, full, brimming with positivity. I'm surprised, hashtag deport Johnny Davidson, hashtag sack Ken Davey, this, that and the other, probably. I didn't start, that wasn't me. Did you go to the awards when they were in Salford a couple of years ago before
2019?
Before the COVID, were you there?
I was.
So that was their
And
first.
there was one at Manchester, wasn't there? Was that a season launch? I can't remember. Anyway,
There was the one at Salford.
We used to have events where we could dress up in penguins.
Yeah.
Lancashire County Cricket Club, that's where they used to.
The one where they invited the general public, the great unwashed,
They did
to
be
alongside the stars, and I think was that one of the creative director's ideas. It must have been, mustn't it?
I think so.
I don't know how much of a success it was, and you can't take 1 year and say, "Well, it did work in 2019."
It seemed to be good. Seemed to go. I mean, probably the highlight was Phil Clark being booed when he came on stage by a lot of people. But yeah, that was the year Jackson. Obviously, Salford made us the grand final. Jackson Hastings was man of steel, and Courtney Hill was woman of steel.
So obviously last year, it was
lockdown.
Brian Carney's front room,
which was fine. Understood.
It was nice to have a look into Brian Carney's house. This year,
Mansion.
That must be the Gaelic football money, because you can't get it on the Super League, can you? The hurling. So that was last year, 2020. 2021. Look, we're back in the studio.
It's more than an award studio.
We need a board saying Super League awards on the back.
Could have done it here.
Yeah. Cheap.
It certainly was cheap.
So it was on last night, and it was on telly, and it didn't look great, did it? I mean, it's not something that's been televised, has it, over recent years, I seem to remember. Because I seem to remember the year in which the embargo got broken and everyone got upset. That wasn't on telly.
They have had the highlights,
yes.
And they have had some of them live. And it's great that we recognise our players, but you have to do it in a respectful way. And I have to say that the cheapest cost-cutting measures that they used last night were the complete antithesis to those that were being lauded. I don't get it, because as you pointed out, there are studios they could have gone to. They could have taken a cameraman to Brian Carney's house or his local golf club and filmed it there. It looked horribly cheapened.
I mean, it's a long time since I was at university learning how to make things like this. But when the start of the programme is Brian Carney leaning into his camera just to see if it was working, I thought it wasn't the best of start. I'm not blaming him. I'm not blaming whoever at Sky put it together.
Know what Brian Carney really thinks, because I think when he looks back on that, he'll go, "Not sure we did that the best way we could have." His questions are great. The recipients seem to be all the right people winning the awards. I don't think there was any dispute.
There was no surprise. I mean, Sam Tompkins was light years ahead of
Absolutely.
Jack Wellsby.
Jodie Cunningham.
Yeah, they've won 2 of the 3 main trophies, and they're in the grand final.
Don't think there was any problem.
Jack Wellsby stand out. I'm just trying to think who was Coach of the Year. Obviously, you know.
Don't think you can argue with that either.
No.
So all of the ingredients were there. It's just that the strange thing is people like Ken Davey, who was interviewed at the beginning, want better and more coverage, and they want personalities. It's very hard to create a personality when they're effectively on a Zoom call where the Wi-Fi's breaking up and somebody's flushing a toilet in the background. You need to do it respectfully, and it wasn't last night.
You should have known the Lachlan Coote call this morning. It was brilliant, kept breaking up. No one's fault. What's stuck out at the start of it, and I've written about this, and it may get into the magazine, you'll have to find out next month. Super League needs a charismatic front person, male, female, whatever, who can come out, say some fluff words about stuff, how everything's this, that and the other. Ken Davies obviously a very successful businessman, far successful than I'll ever be, unless I go into politics, and I might be outbeating at that. He's kept Huddersfield afloat for God knows how long in the face of people seemingly not caring in the town, but he's not a charismatic frontman, and that's not his fault, but he shouldn't be up there at the start of the programme saying whatever he said because I switched off. That's just, we need somebody.
I think if he said the words Osho Ole, it would have gone down quite well. But yeah, no, I mean you are right, Rich. I mean, I think we've been saying that the sport for.
It sounds like it's a personal criticism of him, but it's
not.
No.
I think the other thing about
I think Robert Elston, sort of spoke about that.
Stockport County's Bob Elston.
But he never kind of put himself forward, or engaged with the media. So, as you said, Phil, it's one thing to say we need personalities, we need. You actually have to do something. Yeah. You have to change the way you operate. You have to open yourself up.
I think there was another glaring anomaly in the Loch Lomond spirit of Rugby League or Super League award, because
the rugby union.
It may well have gone to the right person.
He works for Leicester Tigers now.
But he's not exactly.
Yeah. Castleford.
All that highlighted to me was there is somebody that you're talking about a spokesperson, you're talking about somebody who is known outside of the game. The game has dispensed with that person in the period where we're now giving him the Spirit of the Game award, which he deserves, but it just highlights what we have done wrong as a sport, that he isn't involved in it. Yeah,
I mean, I've written before about the brain drain, and that happens across all areas in rugby league.
Absolutely.
And it's another example of Kim and Sinfield.
And if you're going to have an awards ceremony, and it can't be the glittering tuxedo wearing one that you would want, although it could have been, because there has been I think there's been a film premiere. Some guy called Bond has had people on a red carpet.
He likes Rugby League. He was on.
He was. So you could have had something, admittedly pared back to what it might have been. Yeah. The very least it should have been was filmed in a manner in which those people who were fated felt like it was something really special. As
has been pointed out last week on Our League, they did the Championship and League One awards in the Betfred Jury or whatever it is.
And then you look at, I think I saw it because you retweeted it, Phil, but the video piece, I think it was about 5 minutes on Catlands, which was obviously filmed in Perpignan, but the production values were great. It was
that's been done by Super League.
Yeah, so I mean, it just goes to show, we do need to present ourselves better. And I think, in fairness to Sky on the Thursday night, they had obviously a studio in Manchester, didn't they? I thought that they did that really well.
Yeah, flew Jenna out there so that there was somebody on the ground that could convey, as she brilliantly did, how exciting it was to be there. And the contrast between Thursday night and what we want the competition to be, and last night with the awards that 4020 Live could have done as good a production.
We've done a draw now, we can do everything.
In some ways was sad. Because we should not ape everything that the NRL do, but one thing they always get right is making Grand Final a week of celebration. And even though it was in Brisbane this year and it was 2 Sydney teams, they still had the teams in the square, they still lit up buildings.
Grand Final breakfast.
Yeah. We should have Monday night, Man of Steel. It's a prestigious do that leads you into the Grand Final.
I don't understand why the Dream Team wasn't announced in the same event. Why would you not? Like a Dalian.
Just make it part of something.
Yeah, because I mean, as we knew, we could have probably predicted who was going to win every award, but the dream team was, well, for me, there was a couple of surprises in there.
Yeah.
It was mostly, pretty well known, but, you could switch a couple of players around.
I also think our players would really respond to that kind of thing, because it doesn't happen very often. So they feel very uncomfortable. I once saw Alex Walmsley in a car park before one of these, desperately trying to work out what a bow tie was and how the hell you put it on. He didn't like it, but when you were talking about it to him, he was, the prestige that goes with having to do that once a year makes it really special.
Yeah.
Makes them feel special. I don't think we did that last night. There wasn't even any excitement when it was announced who'd won each award, because the recipient was in screen. And the winner is, look, there's Sam Tompkins watching, he must be the winner. Even the opening of an envelope and the reading of it out, there's an excitement to that. Even if you know who it is, we missed out on all of that.
Maybe in the realignment someone can find some envelopes somewhere in those exciting offices in the Victoria Quarter of Manchester. It's disappointing, isn't it? And we're going to, we can preempt what will happen next week, and we won't be live next week, but we will be on at some point. We can preempt what everyone will be discussing at around 6 o'clock on Saturday night, which will be there's no one at the grand final. Now,
Catalans bring no away.
They've chartered their 4th plane today.
Foreigners are bad.
I've seen plenty of adverts on.
They've
on
got buses
everything.
coming, 3-day trips from Perpignan.
Now I know before the Magic Week, after the Magic Weekend, I said
they're not going to get no fuel when they get in.
Yeah, they can't get back. The good news is you're coming to the grand final.
Or buy
the
any
bad
food.
news is you're staying here for quite a while.
Pretty will sort them out. Should get them out of the country. It'll be all right.
Could you bring some tanker drivers? Drop them off.
I said after the Magic Weekend, when people criticised the marketing for the Magic Weekend, it was in that position where we still didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, we still don't, do we? But it's been on the cards that this grand final is going to happen. There's been a chance that Catalans will be there. But irrespective of that, why haven't we made the grand final one of our 2 showpiece events of the year? Yes, we've got the Chinese Grand Final, we've got this.
3. Magic Weekend.
Magic Weekend, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing I don't understand. Like, there's only...
Where's the
obviously, everyone has a club that they support, or most people. If you follow a club, if you follow Batley or you follow Warrington, you still might go and see England play. You still might go, obviously, whenever they do play, once every 4 years, but that's a different point. But to Wembley, you'll go to a grand final.
That's Australia.
Yeah, that's they're events. They're big events.
I just think as well that you're right. It's there has to be buy-in, but you've actually got everyone's second favourite team now being there with the Dragons. You've got somebody you can support as a neutral. So again, season ticket holder of any Super League club can go to the grand final and get a Dragons flag for 15 quid. I don't think you should necessarily cheapen those people who bought tickets for the event, but I think you have to have a minimum amount of people there, and you've got to find a way to appeal. They're an eminently supportable club as a neutral because of the way they play and what they've achieved. 2
massive storylines. If they win, first French team, the first foreign team to win Super League. If St Helens win, it's a 3-peat.
Yeah.
It's only been done once before in Super League.
But you would be with St Helens, but we may have even said this last week, with St Helens' permission and collusion in all of this, you would have allowed the Super League to start almost appealing to the Wigan and the Warrington and the fan, the direct rivals of St Helens, and say, look, we want you to be there to, get in the Catalan end. You don't want St Helens to be 3 times winners. We haven't done any of that.
Well, I did ask Arthur Maud about getting the support from the rest, but he said he just concentrates on what's on the pitch. So it's good to see.
Did you ask him in French?
No, of course.
As long as he's practicing those high balls,
and,
catching them. I mean,
as Andrew has asked, and this, right, I'm not comparing the Super League Grand Final to the Super Bowl, right? Because that would be ridiculous. However,
I'd love to see Barry McDermott's exposed nipple. Half-time show.
Sure,
not really.
If you ask him nicely, he might. I don't know.
I don't think you need to worry about that.
Good.
I think
facetious.
I think you would.
But 4 weeks into the NFL season, they've announced who the Super Bowl halftime show is. Why don't we announce at the start? I know this year.
We haven't announced yet.
I know this year.
I don't know. No. We've only just learned who the referee is.
I know again this year is a.
Maybe you could do both. Maybe you could sing a song.
John Kent.
I know again.
R.I.P. the singing referee.
This year is a strange one, but we could have still said at the start of the season, if everything goes to plan, here's your pre-match entertainment. You're not going to buy in from neutrals to go see, come watch a rugby league match, if there's nothing else attached to it, and there is nothing attached to this grand final, and there hasn't been since grand final 1. We don't sell it. It should be sold as an event. It would also be nice if
it was not a one-off game, but I know there are logistics obviously with Manchester United and their pitch and whatever, but to have the women's game.
I'm not sure about the women's. I think the women's game should be on the front. Again, going back to this rolling, what would you have to make grand final week really special?
I mean, obviously the £1 million game.
Man of Steel on the Monday, £1 million game on the Thursday night, and I know it's part-time teams and it'd be short notice, but for the £1 million game,
calling sick
Thursday night. So you imagine Toulouse Featherstone on Thursday night.
It's on Premier Sport. The bosses won't see it.
Women's grand final on Friday night as a standalone event.
Yeah.
Which again, if it was at Headingley, you've got a ground in Toulouse and maybe 10,000 people in on the Thursday night. You've got Headingley on a Friday night under lights, which is a pretty good experience. And then you've got the leading up to the grand final. I'm sure you could find an undercard game if you wanted to, but I think you're right. It's more about the grand final experience, possibly, or whatever it might be. But make it the last game of the season is potentially the biggest game of the season in terms of attendance and venue. So if you were to get 70,000 on a regular basis at Old Trafford, that should be the full stop. The
thing also with the Super League Grand Final, and I know obviously Sky want exclusivity, if I can say it, and it may take some money out of the TV deal, but the Grand Final has to be on free to air live. It has to be either on BBC or ITV. I mean, if we do want to spread the word, that is the showpiece event of the whole
Or even
year.
you could have it on at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I think you've got to have it live on Sky and live.
The Fox Sport replay the grand final after Channel 9 have had it? Because they've got the exclusive rights.
Previously, yeah. Generally they have every game, on at the same time. But yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be available to all. And you look at the drama of last season's grand final. I think neutrals who watched that were amazed at the finish.
Well, just get Tony Bellew on the commentary team. He looked quite excited. But no, the whole of the build-up should be, celebrity endorsement, the retiring players going out and being, feted in front of the crowd live.
Except Tyrone McCarthy, apparently doesn't exist.
Must be playing on.
I mean, that is a strange one, isn't it? How do they choose who is involved in that video and who isn't? Because there's some people in that video who
have already retired 2 years ago.
Or have had very checkered pasts.
Or been playing in the championship.
Like you think.
Well, they had James.
They didn't put Ben Flower punching Lance Ohio in there, which is his only thing that he's done in rugby league.
But they had James Maloney, who was playing on for Leicester.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He's not actually retiring. I mean, what?
Are we pretending like the French non-Super League?
So the French Elite One is the same as Super League is to the Australian.
It's essentially what the NRL do. It's like Joel Thompson from Manly retiring.
Yeah.
He's going to St Helens.
Yeah.
Now he's actually retiring, but yeah. Yeah, it's a bit nonsense.
But make an event of it. Have times in the afternoon where you're going to do
those players. The other ones actually retiring from Super League teams playing this year, not Wella Haraki, Tyrone McCarthy, and they should have a lap.
Yeah,
people should be able to come and they're players who've Michael Shetton, etc. They've made massive contributions to several clubs.
And you might even get some fans of the clubs they played for going to salute them.
Yeah.
As they formally
it's a respect thing, isn't it, for the efforts that they've done.
So there's things you can do.
Yeah. I mean, Don Manfredi, very sad how his career, but he won a grand final at Old Trafford.
Deserves to be actually interviewed on the pitch at Old Trafford.
And applauded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't forget to warm up, booing the referee in the warm-up. It was from a couple of years ago.
You can actually have more than one band if you want as well. If you're going to make a real celebration. Old Trafford is big enough to have that stage in the corner without affecting anything. To announce now that you've got, someone who the older fraternity might recognise. Madness were great one year when they did the pre-match and said one of these newer singer-songwriter combos that some of us never heard of. Great.
I've seen some dreadful acts at Old Trafford in the pre-match.
Sting's good.
I don't want it to appear that I was picking on Ben Flower there, but that one.
But you were.
Yeah, never
is at the door.
Leigh fans will probably be cheering that comment anyway. Is there anything else to talk about? Before we'll preview the actual on the field thing in a bit, but it's a shame it's not going to be bigger than it should be.
But you don't know that.
Well, no. Maybe millions of people will come out of the way. I mean, the RFL have been very smart with the women's grand final, haven't they? In terms of the numerous offers, especially to sports of the clubs involved, to try and get as big a crowd as possible there.
And putting them in the north stand so that when the cameras focus on them,
I think it's the most exciting grand final weekend for you, and I think Salford getting there 2 years ago was massive, and that was reflected in the ratings. And that was
same with Castleford in 2017.
Exactly. And they were the best team all year. Catalan's getting there as usual, and obviously even bigger is obviously Toulouse and Featherstone. I mean, Featherstone still may win, so the neutrals may be disappointed, but if Toulouse win, that is a monumental thing. I mean, could be relegated a year later, and it could be all very, very fleeting, but that's kind of a different conversation, isn't it? A different argument. But it feels like a seminal moment for Rugby League in France this weekend.
If you were a European company,
yes,
and if for a relatively small amount of money, comparatively speaking, you wanted to get your name known throughout the north of England and the south of France, then Toulouse getting promoted is quite a big deal for the commercial prospects of the sport. So it's nothing to do with Featherstone, that's just life. If you are Bein, who are struggling for money like a lot of television companies are, need to justify their investment in live sport, and they've found it hard to say we want to televise all the Catalan home games this year. If you've got two French teams and you cleverly structure your fixture list so that there's always one at home, so you've got investment in the rolling competition, and you've got the two, now in Rugby League, 12 derby fixtures, suddenly there's a commercial value to that as well. If you've got Lake Keep, and again it's going back to Thursday night wasn't so much about the standard of the game, and still hats off to Hull KR for getting there, but I'm not sure Catalan had to play the best they've had to play this year to win that game. Hull KR made too many mistakes. But what you got was L'Equipe giving 2 pages to the game in the preview, L'Equipe putting picture of the Dragons on the front page. That's never happened before. We shouldn't underestimate how important L'Equipe as a bible of sports journalism in the whole of Europe is. We haven't gone out and been able to source that through the competition. Catalan have done that by virtue of their achievements.
Of their success.
They had 3 television companies featuring that game on Thursday night. Bein's coverage went through all of France rather than just being regional. They had a regional company, and of course we had Sky over here. That's never happened before.
People talk about a French TV deal. If you could guarantee a home French game every weekend...
You've got a TV deal.
Yeah, but a TV company's not going to say, well, I want that for 3 years, if both teams could be relegated the next year. But that, as I said, that is a different
But at the
argument.
moment, let's take the one step of getting a deal for 1 year.
Yeah.
And the French Minister of Sport sent a message of congratulation to the Dragons team, which again, the Minister of Sport doesn't normally come across Rugby League. We are trying to get to their table to get funding for the next World Cup. It all rolls into something that's actually really quite important. L'Equipe tweeted that result. They've got 5.5 million followers on Twitter. Even Sam Tompkins ain't got that many. You can't say that doesn't have a value, and that's nothing to do with Featherstone. That's just where we are at the moment.
I think when you look at Rugby League in the M62 area, I mean, the concentration of clubs in West Yorkshire, it's an oversaturation of market. It's the similar argument that's been happening in Sydney, and obviously in the mid '90s, and since they've changed, there's too many clubs in the Sydney area. So we merged Balmain and West. We got rid of Newtown. Well, that was before, but we got rid of Newtown. We got rid of North. St George merged with Illawarra. I'm sorry. Nothing's ever happened about that. So we've got a smattering, and there is too many. I mean,
there is too many to make the competition commercially viable
and bigger nationally.
But we also have an issue with the sport now, particularly coming off the back of the pandemic, that money has never been so short.
Yes.
So if we are talking about Sky are really pleased with the figures and we can justify to them that we're a decent sport, please don't look at our awards programme. Everything else is great. You know, they've dropped 40% of their offer because nobody else is interested. So how do you get them interested? Well, you know, we've got Toulouse, we've got the whole of the Catalonian region. Toulouse, one of the great rugby cities, with a partnership between the union and the league clubs that play at the stadium that actually seems to sort of work.
Yeah.
It's not artificial. There is buy-in from both sides. Well, suddenly you've got something to sell at a time when you desperately need new finance that you wouldn't get if Catalan weren't doing what they have heroically done through Bernard Gouache, and Toulouse on the verge of actually now letting people stand up and go, this might be a little bit different. This might not be the rugby league that I expected. I perhaps do want to invest something in this. I maybe do want to have the opportunity as a fan to go to France maybe once or twice, but make it an event. So it's an important weekend for the sport.
Or, you know, we could just sue if I get promoted. We could do that.
Is that still going on in the background?
I don't know, Phil.
95,000 people watched Batley and Bradford. 66,000 watched Halifax and Whitehaven. Those are the official figures for those, which is not bad at all, is it? Interestingly, because everyone was crowing about those figures and going, but you're talking one figure.
It's a one-off. It's a one-off event
for a meaningful game.
Yeah,
Don't forget, it's not a rolling league fixture. That is a like winner takes all scenario. People will watch that at the end of the season.
The day after, 2 women's games. 1 o'clock was the
Saints
Cass. Bit of a blowout, 20,000, which is more than Premier Sports gets for anything. And the Leeds York game, 29,000, which for a fledgling competition, I'd say are good figures. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think they're figures that you can negotiate on.
You can build on, yeah, definitely.
They have a value.
People get too excited about one-off things and extrapolate it into everything's great. You know, I don't know what the figures are for last week's games. I'm sure somebody already knows and he's crying about them, but it still doesn't mean Sky are going to pay you millions of pounds to show these games, and that's...
Well, you make it as part of your overall package. You know, you can sell the women's element, you can sell the wheelchair element, you can sell the 2 teams in France element. You've actually got something that you could put on a table that more than one broadcaster would be interested in all or part of. Once you start getting competition, you start getting a proper value for it. Not Sky saying we love your product, but actually we'll give you less because nobody else is interested.
By the way, you remember last week I looked at the Premier Sports figures and it was 4,000 for something. Last week they've got figures for 20,000 was the most watched from some Scottish League Cup games. So you can't just take one figure and extrapolate it off. That's the problem with people. Before we get on to the games that are coming up, abuse is everywhere. Referee abuse is ridiculous. Referee abuse is ridiculous, especially at junior games. Ban the parents, ban everyone from pitch side. If they can't behave, get them out of the game. No, there's no place for it. Abuse in the crowd. I mean, unfortunately, and talking about ridiculous things that have happened in the last week. I just don't know how. And obviously, I haven't seen the full details, but I can read a headline. I can read a press release. How can a punishment be? We're going to make a club says we're going to spend money on marketing Diversity Day, because that is the biggest load of bollocks I've seen in a long time.
So what?
Because now, how do we prove it for a start? And it could be any club. Say Featherstone have been accused of some of their fans being abusive to a Halifax supporter at the weekend.
Have. There's an investigation of that.
So surely now Featherstone get on the phone to the RFL and say, right, well, we spend $3,000 next year on a women a great round. Don't abuse women round. You know, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
You have to wonder when certain clubs it happens again and again, don't you? But in terms of the Bradford one, my understanding of having spoken to the RFL was, and I'm not defending the punishment or severity of it, but punishments in the championship, because obviously a lot of people compared it to the Castleford instance with Gareth Thomas a long time ago, 10 years ago. Punishments in the championship are less, as in terms of monetary value, than Super League, because obviously they don't have the same amount of money. I think that instance, it was quite isolated. The referee didn't hear it, while the Gareth Thomas issue was throughout the game. Those were two mitigating factors. There was another one, but yeah. I mean, I think you can't compare every punishment in every instance unless they're exactly the same. But yeah, it doesn't set a great message, I guess. And the thing, just abuse in general, whether it be of referees, of other fans.
Hashtag deport Johnny Davidson.
Well, I support that one. Just need to start account, start paying me.
Go fund me to get
go fund me. Yeah. I only need about 2,000 quid, so that's all right.
There's a bigger issue, I think, in the sport.
Well, when you're pulling referees from a junior league, that's a real eye-opener.
We all laughed at the Tannoy announcements that Rugby League is a family game, but we're not even getting them at the moment. And there seems to be, and I don't think you can pick out individual clubs because I think it affects the sport as a whole, a much more intimidatory atmosphere at matches these days. And that's a concern. I think what's being chanted, be it to a referee or the opposition fans, is becoming increasingly unsavoury, particularly intimidatory in some respects. I don't know why. I think you're probably right. It's a reflection of a divided society, and
we are a very divided society, yeah.
And that you would expect to show up in, but to me, there used to be almost a black humour that characterised rugby league. That we knew how to take it to a certain point. We knew what was almost on that verge of being slightly dark, but vaguely funny, and could be turned on yourself. And that's where all this family game idea came from. We got to ditch that. Never has it been more obvious that this isn't a family game. But something is wrong within rugby league fans in general of all clubs that is making it a less than savoury place to go at the moment. And I know of a very long-standing fan who stood with fans of the club that he has been a follower of for over 40 years, felt embarrassed to be with his own fans because of what they were chanting. And you just...
Lammy's here.
He's got his new job. Adrian's here. Adrian!
It's just not nice. It's just not good. And I don't mean it to sound like I'm picking on Bradford, but it is a nonsense excuse, that, isn't it?
I think it's wider than that. If you focus on an individual incident with an individual club, you miss the point that things at the moment are spiralling in a way that I think we should be concerned about.
All the way from Stockport.
And
just I don't finished an interview with Gary Carter. Sorry.
I don't know what the answer is, but I know we've got a problem.
I don't think there is an answer. That's the problem.
But it's affecting everyone.
We have that's the thing. I mean, I wouldn't say, if you look at what happened in the Euros and happens at football, I wouldn't say it's an isolated, and that, I mean, that's, you can say that about everything. Yeah, players getting, beating up their wives or getting done for cocaine, it's a societal problem. But that is a bit of an excuse. But we do live in an increasingly fractured society. If you look at the abuse online that people, whether it be to the players or coaches or whatever, common decency seems to be a thing of the past. But we have to do something about it, because particularly when you get fans who are, have been going for decades and won't go again to certain grounds or whatever.
Because they've had an unpleasant experience. And it's nothing to do with the game.
Yeah.
Because the game itself often isn't the trigger. It's people who are going with a mindset of nobody is self-censoring anymore. So when somebody's coming up with a chant or a song and it's abusive, nobody's sitting there saying, I'm not going to sing that. It's like too many people are joining in.
Yeah, well, we live in an age now where my opinion is as valid as yours. I mean, we might be talking about literature and owning bookshops, but for some reason I think I know as much as you, someone who's run a bookshop and a publishing company for decades. But that's the facts don't seem to matter. Knowledge doesn't seem to matter.
But we also have an issue with stewarding, I think.
Well, yeah.
They can't do anything, can they?
But the thing, again, I think we're going back to cost. So we talk about the Super League awards weren't what they should have been because of cost. Talking about the lack of money that's coming into the sport from the television deal, which is affecting the quality of overseas player that we could get over, or the wages that we can pay to young Super League stars. Part of that cost saving has also come in the amount of stewards in the ground, not even what they're allowed to do, but clearly, if you're going to be subject to abusive behaviour, or there's going to be chanting that isn't acceptable by any societal norm, how do you stop that if you don't have stewards that can go in and eject people from the ground?
Yeah.
Or security cameras that can focus on individuals. You know, like there have been wider and more important societal issues where front page local newspapers have featured the portraits of those that have been involved, and they've been arrested. And we're not doing that. And we need to, because it is becoming an issue.
Liam says, a few games I've been to, I've noticed it seems much like a football crowd, much less fans from either side mingling. And that probably doesn't help.
Again, I think
everything's
will,
tribal, isn't it?
But we'll lose what we need to do as a sport ourselves if we start to say it's an infiltration of football fans. It's too easy an excuse. And what used to happen when the big games came around is you did used to... I can remember going to watch Leeds and Featherstone Challenge Cup semi-final in the late 70s, where, because it was a semi-final, it was a big game, it was played at Odsal, so everybody who wanted to go could go. There was a clear evidence of a lot of Leeds United fans that weekend, at the time when hooliganism was pretty rife in the late 70s, said, we'll go to that. And it had been pre-arranged that the Manchester United fans, who were their great rivals, would go in the Featherstone end. And it was more of an excuse for those two riotous football fans to meet afterwards and do what football fans were doing. And it was too easy for us to say, oh, in the big games, it's football fans. Now, we've got our own issues. We need to solve them.
There's a lot of people, myself included, who follow both sports. They go to football games, they go to rugby league games, and they equal, they're into both sports as equal. So yeah, I don't think we can say it's a football.
And we don't want to have segregation.
Perhaps it goes back to... Remember, just after the World Cup was postponed, we had our rant session. And
foreigners are bad, Rich.
Foreigners are bad.
Particularly.
And bloody Aussies.
Bloody foreigners. Kick them all out. And the one word I kept going back to was accountability. No one's accountable for anything. Whether, whatever you say or do, we see people in high-profile positions in our sport who have done bad things in the past, just waved away. Everything's forgotten about. Oh, he's a good club person.
I think our grounds are becoming more intimidatory. And if we are serious about attracting new fans, whether that's through opening new markets like maybe Toulouse, or whether that is retaining the hardcore support that's kept the sport going, which is clearly falling, then one of the reasons is they're not enjoying going to the games anymore. What marketing or research are clubs doing about lapsed fans and asking them why?
I think there is a tie too, and you look at what happened with I don't want to get too political, but what happened with the Black Lives Matter movement and the kneeling and the outcry from a lot of people there was, and you tie that into frustrations over Brexit and the austerity measures and the collapse of economies, and there is massive fissures in society, and that has played out in at grounds.
But if you stick your head in the sand and don't recognise that
you've got a problem,
one of your USPs is that whatever this family game is, and it's a card that we as a sport keep playing, and the more you play it, the more it can come back and bite you because it clearly isn't happening. When are we going to own up to the fact that we need to clean up our act a little bit? Don't know how you do it. But clearly, I think some clubs could ban some fans if it's proven.
Yeah.
And it's easier to prove it now than it's ever been with CCTV, and that we don't want that element in the sport.
Well, when you see police preying on young women like happened in London, you just kind of wonder the society that we live in anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
You question everything,
no,
you question institutions across the board. But yeah, I think the refereeing, I mean, that we do, I mean, we talk about, participation numbers and fans, but without referees, there is no game.
And the saddest thing about that was, it was the Huddersfield Referee Society saying they were going to withdraw referees at junior level.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm not saying it's acceptable at senior level, or it's even understandable at senior level.
It's the parents of players, parents of players abusing referees who are kids themselves. I mean, You can be unhappy about the decision, but to abuse a 15, 16...
But again, and I'm not criticising the RFL, because I'm sure there is an investigation going on to that, but the fact that it was the referee society themselves that had to pull out...
Then supported, I think, by, wasn't it the Dewsbury and Batley, or the Batley and Dewsbury?
I haven't seen a statement from anybody connected with the sport saying what they're going to do about it.
If you read rugbyleaguehub.com long reads on Patreon, there is a statement from Mark Lovery.
But what they're going to do about it?
Well, yeah.
There's a statement saying
promising action.
We abhor it.
Yeah.
But
is it minutes that it's been rising? Yeah.
Referees have been suffering this for a while, and referees are still being expected to go out this weekend. What's been implemented on the back of that Huddersfield statement, even in the short term? Now, if they changed the powers and said referees have the ability to call off games if they feel that they're being abused or intimidated, and there'll be somebody
there... It's like you see in football with black players who are... Yeah.
Then, at least it goes beyond words. We have to start acting.
Definitely.
Carson said he loved the atmosphere in the Batley Beer Garden 3 weeks ago. And the atmosphere at Cass 2 years ago. He said some clubs don't care about behaviour just to get their gate numbers up. Yeah, probably true.
I think if Carson had been to some games this season, he would have noticed the kind of change that we have as well.
How was Carson allowed? He shouldn't have been allowed in the country.
Well, that's why I said 2 years ago.
Swiss Germans.
He was at Germany.
Was he at the Griffin Cup?
He was there.
Good man. His team lost though.
They did. Liam says, due to COVID and they're living abroad, only been to one fair match in the last few years. Sheffield last week. Most fans were great, but there were definitely a few just wanting to shout abuse at the Sheffield fans, who, to be fair, were having a great time. Despite the result, just police the ale a bit more. Well, again, we're talking about taking money out of the clubs. So.
No, but if that's what we've got to do, then we have to decide what is our priority.
If fans stop going, it's not that hard.
But if fans stop going, that minority is actually becoming the majority because it's stopping other people going.
Are you pitching that to the RFL's marketing department?
Don't be a dick. That should be the signs all over Old Trafford on Saturday.
They have it in Australia,
don't be a dick.
Yeah, that'd be swearing here.
And I also think that we shouldn't think that any club is unaffected by this. I think that there is an element that is prevalent in every club.
Everyone's got bad ones.
And that's why the sport needs to do something about it, even if it's banning someone.
Everyone's got bad ones. League One promotion playoff final. Don't know who's got bad ones here. Workington Town versus Doncaster. It's not got any monetary value attached to this one because it's probably worth...
It's 125 grand.
Workington, of course, got the week off. Doncaster, who beat Keighley on the buzzer.
What an ending.
What a match. It sounded like. I didn't watch it, I was working. When I saw the score, Doncaster, there you go. It's all about...
peaking at the right time.
Two teams who... Were they both formed in the 1950s? I'm mixing Workington up with somebody else in Cumbria. I can't remember which one.
Was it, Rich, was it all the interviews that Keithley had done? Is that what did them in the end? But tired from too many media interviews.
But Doncaster,
sorry, that was a joke. I didn't
finished
didn't get that.
Doncaster, but have made the
Leeds Rhinos of League One playoff promotion final thing.
The Hull FC. Are they still the Hull FC?
I don't think they are anymore.
Whitehaven are.
Wow.
I mean, there's a link because I think they're doing a camp this week to try and get some of the best Cumbrian young players.
Is that the excuse that Brett Hodgson's using at the moment?
Like our Leeds.
We need more Cumbrians, he said.
I think they've announced the Manu Matul new deal or new contract extension money. I think that was embargoed till 6 o'clock.
He's been a great. He couldn't have done a lot more this year. The interesting thing you were saying is there's a story whoever wins the Super League Grand Final. There's a story whoever wins that League One promotion spot because it either is the revival of Cumbrian Rugby League if Barrow and Workington go up to join Whitehaven, and again that's something that we should celebrate. Or it's South Yorkshire getting another foothold in the Championship, the derby with Sheffield next year, and that can only help, interest in whether we like it or not, it's still a development area, even if it goes back to the 1950s for Doncaster and Sheffield's 40-year celebration. Whoever wins that game, it's a good news story for Rugby League.
If I'm a League One club, I'm hoping Workington because it's less to travel.
I drove past Attercliffe on the way here, and there are things going on. And there are actual
things going on in Attercliffe.
If you're a Wakefield or a Cass fan, you'd be very jealous. But there is a legacy of, I don't know exactly when the finish date is, but
You can
there
see
will be a stadium.
You can see steel work.
I mean, unfortunately, it's in a shitty part of Sheffield.
Oh.
But no, look, it's a start. That was a joke.
But it's near the English Institute of Sport,
yes,
so they've had a massive intake.
It's where there is actually real
wheelchair
estate.
players. Yeah. So again,
go to Meadow Hall.
Either South Yorkshire becomes a little bit more of a
Taco Bell. What's the scene do?
So day out,
a few red light shops.
Sheffield. Yeah.
No. I live in Sheffield. I'm obviously a supporter of
destination location.
There's some interesting pubs in that area for away supporters, I understand. So,
no comment.
No.
But the either way, it's a good news story for the sport. But it's also this desperate need to escape from League One because of the uncertainties of funding for League One going forward. So it's a massive game for both of those clubs and their future.
That's the thing, Someone in the RFL disputed the information that I had from certain clubs about the funding. That's all set in stone. But the clubs don't know what there will be in 2023. And if there is 2 sets of 10, if you're not in that top 8 grasping the championship, you are dead in the water.
Which, if you aren't in the championship in 2022, you don't even have the chance of getting in that.
And from what I understand, I think Halifax are one club who apparently are spending a lot more next year
to ensure
top 8. Which is a gamble, but maybe it's the right gamble. We won't know. But yeah, you're right.
I think it's a gamble for a sport that hasn't got a plan going on ahead of a year.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that is always the problem with rugby league, isn't it? That it's boom or bust.
And the reality, at least in my view, and I could be very wrong, but building on what we were saying about the oversaturation in certain areas, there are certain areas of the sport that need more support and more investment than others. And one of those is London, the South. I think one of those is South Yorkshire. I think one of those is Newcastle. I think Cumbria, well, at least needs some strategy. And you could say, France is another area.
I think if we are serious about sustainability at a time when that is so difficult to achieve in all walks of life, you have to make plans for this that aren't solely about what's on the field. And I know people keep saying, that's the only way you can decide things. I'm not sure. I think you've got to be cleverer than that. I think we're at a time at the moment where actually everybody benefits if we get it right, whereas nobody does if it's just whoever wants to overspend this year in the hope of perhaps some gold at the end of a rainbow that might not even exist next year. You just going down a path we've been down for 125 years, which is why we've never sustained. And the other thing as well that I agree, something that Brian Noble has said, is that we should stop looking at this as expansion, and that calling expansion the opposite to traditionalism, that it's growth. That if your business doesn't grow...
Well, Catalans is an expansion. They've been playing rugby league in that area for what? 60 years, 70 years, more? It was a merger of two existing clubs.
Cumbria is 50 or 60 years in the making, but have we done it properly?
Yeah.
There are still a lot of great youngsters coming out of Cumbria.
There's a difference between doing it properly and...
But you'd want those youngsters to stay in Cumbria. So strategic talks around the three of you now can provide the base for something that competes at a higher level, but you all get a stake in that and you all retain your identity. It's exactly the kind of conversations we should be having.
Cumbria's been doing that for decades, hasn't it? Producing players that have gone on to play in Super League, as has London with your...
But if they stayed in those areas, that's sustainable growth. London will become an academy that produces great talent for another sport and a few Super League clubs that can afford it. That's not what London should be about after 40 years. Cumbria is the same. We still have a really strong community game in Cumbria that produces the quality of player that could go on like a Morgan Knowles, and there are hundreds of other examples, Kyle Amor, from that area that want to stay in that area and want that area to be successful.
I think I was talking with Mr. Wilson, formerly of this program, on social media.
People are going to upset. I think he's still part of this family. He's just not here.
Morally, he's with us.
And my point was that promotion and relegation doesn't work in English Rugby League, and I think he was agreeing, and someone might have said, but it's it's part of our sporting DNA, which I do agree, but sporting culture's changed.
Yeah, but apparently so is racist abuse on the touchline now.
The other thing that's in our DNA...
So was cocaine in the off-field, but...
Well, the other thing
cultures do change over time. They evolve.
But rugby league cultures change. The other thing in our DNA is having 31 clubs playing in a single division where not everybody plays each other home and away. We've had that for a number of years. You know, we have consistently changed our structure. We've had 3 divisions, 2 divisions. There isn't anything in our culture that we haven't already had before. We've just never stuck with one for long enough to actually see the benefit of it. And that's what we need to be looking at now. And if that involves a degree of change, we've never had in the sport the huge distinction between full-time and part-time.
Yeah.
Other sports have that to a degree, but not to the same degree.
And other sports, apart from boxing, are not as physical or as taxing.
But if you talk to rugby union and look at what they're doing, they've virtually pulled up the drawbridge between the Premiership and the Championship, and the teams that move between the two are the same teams. So there is coming a point where that's going to stop, and it won't be long. The same would happen in Scottish football if they could.
Yes.
But I think sometimes you need to take the lead. You need to be, if we're going to be innovative as well as being family, we just need to say, right, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is how it benefits everybody. This is how everybody gets a share of it. But it isn't necessarily what we have at the moment. Would
you like to see, you know, the Tugan Seahawks up against the Brisbane Broncos or the Maitland Pumpkin Pickers up against South Sydney?
It doesn't happen.
It's not gonna get businesses or $1 billion TV deal. That's the sad reality.
But the other sad reality...
But the Maitland Pumpkin Pickers can produce players like Luke Dawn who go on to play for the Knights or Manly or Castleford or whoever.
But also, I think there is
a place in the
there is a realisation that if the elite element of your sport brings in the resource and the funding is structured in such a way that everybody benefits, you don't structure your competition towards the team that is at the bottom of the food chain. You structure it to sustain in the top, and I don't think we've ever done that.
I like John asked, do you think we're done by about 7:30? 20 past already.
Who asked?
John.
I might get in trouble for on.
Well, I hope so, because trouble's our middle name.
Is it like
danger powers?
Family members who want to kick out other family members of their group? Is that the kind of League One mantra?
There's a certain family member of mine I'd like to kick out because she married a Roosters supporter and now wears Rooster skis and goes to Roosters, even though we're all a family of Manly fans. I mean, that's a traitor at the highest level.
I think finally on that, what structure do you have? We pride return on investment. We had Simon Johnson on the programme saying it's an integral part of what the RFL are trying to achieve. Return on investment means you cannot solely rely on what happens on the field. You've got to make some strategic decisions about what works best for the sport. Liam
asked, what have those Aussie teams won historically? Yeah, what have the Maitland Pumpkin Pick? Have they ever won the trophy?
The real NRL?
The Premiership, yeah.
Yeah,
the real NRL.
I think I have. That's what it's called. Well, it used to be called the real NRL.
The traditional NRL.
NRL standing for Newcastle Rugby League. Yeah, I think they have. You know, Lakes United, West Newcastle. There's lots of proud clubs. Yeah, you know, the Warilla Gorillas. You know, there's lots of great clubs out there. But
we're not going to dispute it. I do like the Redcliffe Dolphins.
Yeah.
Who might be the 17th.
Well, they make a lot of money in the Queensland
on a franchise basis.
Queensland Cup is a very profitable,
I think that's the other thing that we've said hundreds of times on here, that if you have a licensing / franchise system in some way, it doesn't mean that it's closed. You can still have the ability to promote and relegate teams, but it's not about Halifax deciding in one given year they're going to buy as much talent as they can to elevate themselves, but the infrastructure isn't there.
And you
because all you're building is a high pole without a safety net.
And you promote and expand from a position of strength, not from a position of weakness. Yes. And that we're struggling, let's just throw in a new team like Crusaders. Oh, they went bust. I'm surprised at that. Yeah.
Paris, who were an artificial entity.
Who was their CEO? Was that someone else?
He was sent in by the RFL to clear up the mess.
The bodies.
Wind them down. Yeah.
I don't think it'd be fair to predict a winner in that game because I've seen precisely 0 League One games this season.
I think there'll be a great crowd. It'll be a great game. Yeah. So if you're in the Workington area,
and that kicks off at TBC. So we're looking forward to it on Sunday.
7
It's
a.m.
On the Hour League.
It's on sportsman.com.
Is it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Good work.
Good work from the Fred. Also on Sunday,
I think it's 1 o'clock.
Is it 1 o'clock?
It clashes with the Women's
Shield, which hopefully I'll be there. Fingers crossed. Toulouse versus Featherstone Rovers. Here's the game where everyone wants Toulouse to win apart from people in Featherstone. Obviously, I want Featherstone to win for family reasons.
He played all right, didn't he,
Yeah.
this week?
Top try scorer.
Tough to stop. He's a big lad for
He's
a
a
winger.
big. They're all. As I said, they're all big. They're all big. Them Gales.
He'd fit in the second row.
So it'd be great if Featherstone got promoted. Because it'd be hilarious. Because everyone would be really annoyed.
There'd be a rhubarb derby every week.
It'd be great. We'd just take over. But obviously everyone wants Toulouse to win because they're foreign and exciting and French. But Fev could spoil the party.
Can I just interrupt? That centre, I don't know how you say his name. Is it Jusami?
With his
mullet and the turned up. I mean that.
Can you get any more Gallic than that?
Well, he's kind of a cross between Ryan Pappenhausen and some sort of Frenchman for the 50s with a beret and the turned up. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, how many people are going to turn up at Old Trafford dressed in berets and strings of onion? That's what I'm worried about. That's what we
pandering to a stereotype.
Yeah, that's what we think the French are like.
Smoking.
We've watched Hello Hello, we know what he's like.
I actually don't know who's going to win that game.
No.
Because I think both were very impressive in parts of their game last week. Toulouse in the second half in particular after Batley's gallant shout in the first, and Featherstone just seem to have every base covered. They are such a good.
The big side, aren't they?
I was going to say a well coached team. I actually do think James Webster has done a really good job.
Prepare them for the middle eights.
I do not know why. Well, I do know why.
Is he coming to Leeds, Phil?
No, he's been,
not for a weekend, but
he's been.
See the site.
Next year.
I don't think so.
No,
I think
there goes the St Helens fan on Twitter, Mr. Mav.
No, I don't think he is. I think somebody else might be, but not him.
But he's done a very good job, James West.
But I think he's recruited a really good team.
Yeah.
I can't really see a weakness in the way that they play, and even when they're put under pressure, the defensive structures are really good. They've got strike everywhere. Not only your cousin on the wing, but Connor Jones is clearly a threat in the middle of the field. Dane Chisholm they can bring off the bench to change a game. I don't think it's a given that Toulouse will win that. There will be pressure on Toulouse because the weight of expectation could well. What did they have? Just short of 7,000 there officially. Last Saturday they're talking maybe 10 this week.
I think
there's pressure.
Yeah. Oh no, there is, and they obviously was it? No, it wasn't last year. It was the year before. They lost to Featherstone. Featherstone came over and did the bin. So you could say they choked a little bit, but
absolutely
Toulouse seemed to be, because they've had that core there.
Yes.
Carella, Cook.
Yeah.
They've had a core there for a long
Jonathan
time.
Ford again is so.
Castrian.
But everybody's talking about when London went to Toronto.
It happened.
And it was a given that Toronto were going to get promoted. It was going to be great for the game and open new markets. And
oh dear. London
went. Could we just have a little bit of a say in that? So I am really looking forward to this game because I genuinely do think this one goes off level. Whatever we might like to see the sport look like post match,
we'd just rebrand it as Yorkshire League, wouldn't we?
I just think, but this is Yorkshire that haven't had a grand finalist since 2017, but has the majority of teams in the competition.
Just chant Yorkshire every game.
Like that.
No, I think the way Featherstone played against Halifax, and I haven't seen enough of them this year, but I was just impressed with the manner in which they went about their business. Although I do think it benefits having a week off at that level as well.
Proper kit. Butcher's aprons and all that jazz. And they've got the best stadium in the postcode.
Again, something that the sport needs to look at in terms of facilities.
Yeah. Well, I think that if they do go up the league, better floodlights because they didn't look great on the telly.
Not brilliant.
And I've been in the mini gantry.
Well, didn't Scott Morrell mention that?
Yes.
Get hammered by Featherstone.
Well, I'll just say that.
But no, I think it'd be a terrific game, and may the best team win. May the game benefit from the best team win.
Featherstone could win 2 trophies on Sunday because they're in the Shield final in the Women's Super League against Huddersfield, which will be an interesting game, having seen Huddersfield a couple of weeks ago against Wakefield.
It would be somewhat ironic if we went Toronto Lee to lose, or Toronto Lee Featherstone, but yeah.
I think Fev
Enjoy your own.
I think Fev would bring more to Super League than League. But
more leopard skin outfits. Or...
Has he sued Super League yet? Oh, it depends on what happens this week, doesn't it?
He might if it's Toulouse. He wouldn't if it was Featherstone. He'd just give him all Featherstone all his players.
Yeah, be good, wouldn't it? Recycling all the. I don't want to say rubbish. That's gone fair, isn't it?
Andrea Dobson's last game.
Yes.
Which her career needs celebrating.
It
One
does.
of the absolute stalwarts of women's rugby league, plays for Featherstone in her final match.
I think they missed an open
Sheffield.
goal.
Andrea
Yeah.
Dobson.
I think they missed an open goal, not naming the winner of Steel off after her this year. But
Again, her
maybe in the
story
future.
needs telling in the build up to that game, and it hasn't been yet. Hopefully, it will be. You can read about her in Forty20 magazine. We've done a feature on her. New Sheffield development officer and coach of the Scotland women's team. And
that's the hors d'oeuvre for the final game of the domestic. Well, it's not the final game of the domestic season because Toulouse Feb's after, isn't it? But the final top level elite thing: St Helens versus Leeds.
Again, the top 2 teams playing the last game of the season, which is how it should be.
Woman of Steel versus the last Woman of Steel.
Do you get? I mean, probably the wrong question to Phil, but considering St Helens are going for a treble, aren't they? Do you give Leeds much of a chance? They seem pretty unstoppable.
The only thing that works in Leeds' advantage from what I've seen is the way they played in the semi-final. That they should have been out of it by half-time, and they found something within themselves to claw them back into the game. The semi-final of the Challenge Cup that finished 2012, Saints were better than that 2012 scoreline, but Leeds wouldn't go away. And I have a feeling that, like with the first team men that played this week, Saints will start off at 100 mile an hour. They'll try and blow Leeds away early on. But if Leeds can hang in there, which they didn't do in the men's game, they've got some players that could even be playing their last game that could see them over the line.
That'd be...
Leeds have got a couple of senior people back. I think Amy Johnson's back and then Mr. Forward, clearly. But no, Saints have been the best team. There's a determination about everything they've done since getting back in January. It's the core of the women's international team that was preparing to play in the World Cup, and even though that's been delayed, those preparations have gone on. There's an England international for women coming up that they all want to be part of. Personnel wise, Saints will win that game, but there's something about Leeds teams in a grand final, be they men or women, over recent years, that they've found a way to win. If it's raining, if it's going to affect
the other team
handling.
has a trade bus before the kick-off. No, it could be a massive weekend for St Helens.
It could.
Both the men and the women. I mean,
you would
that
think
would be an
it would
amazing achievement for any club. But if they can do that,
Yeah, Wigan didn't quite capitalise on it when they did it, did they? When we were at that grand final.
No, it was all pretty much low key, wasn't it? And
it's good to see that the women's game has grown in the last couple of years. That it's getting more attention and more
it'll
respect.
have proper coverage, and it'll have proper cameras, and it'll have if they got 29,000 for a semi-final, you'd think that they might get on a Sunday where it's international football weekend, so it isn't going to be up against Premiership competition. Then you might get 50, 60, 80,000 people watching it. And if it's a great game, it can only enhance women's sport.
The key is, you mentioned that game earlier in the season when Saints beat Leeds, and that was when they believed they could beat them. Because before that they didn't believe, and now they do. And I think Saints will win. However, if I could fit in it, I'd wear it, but I can't because it's too small. But
Scowy's last shirt.
What, his actual shirt?
Well, there's no mud on it, so clearly somebody who didn't make a tackle. Centenary season, back to the old Leeds St John's colours.
RFL when they had a good patch and everything.
Quarters.
If you want to buy that, get in touch.
DM, slip into my DMs.
I hope it's a great game.
I hope it's a wonderful spectacle for women's sport.
All the people have the games they want.
Have you told her, by the way, that you think St Helens will?
I told her at the start of the season.
She won't be speaking to you. No. We might try and get her on next week.
Yeah, we'll try. She'll come on Monday. And that's in the bio Leeds have written for it. Says she's a regular on the BBC and the Super League. She doesn't mention us.
Give these people a start.
And in front of hopefully a rapturous crowd at Old Trafford.
Do you know
Millions.
what? Can we not mention the crowd?
In front of people. Hopefully you two in the press box.
Well, we're performing, didn't you know? We're a duet.
I won't be there. I'll be
Kaplan and Davidson featuring the songs.
People didn't want to buy tickets. It's like Simon and Garfunkel, but
after having throat cancer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I won't be there this year because I'm at the Wakefield Trinity Ladies End of Season Awards because I've been invited, so that's good. I can get fed as well, so you know, I don't like the Old Trafford.
Is it the Weatherby Whaler?
It's at Bellevue. It's at the home of Rugby League.
The Rolling Shack.
Yeah, so I'll take my camera, see what we can get. St Helens versus Catalans. Everyone wants Catalans to win, apart from St Helens, who wants St Helens to win, and apart from people who don't like the French. So
that's a lot of people.
It is. Sam Tompkins versus Lachlan Coote if he's fit. Sam Tompkins that is.
Oh, gosh.
James Roby, James Maloney, Jack Wellesby, a lot of forward people who just run around and bash people.
Morgan Knowles, Ben Garcia is one that I'm particularly looking forward to.
Well, I think the funny thing, just looking back at the Magic weekend,
I'm going to
there was obviously
double crew.
I can't remember the conversations with you two or Mr. Wilson or Mr. Schofield. There was a lot of moaning when Golden Point came in and it's not fair. Not yourself, but others. I didn't see a lot of moaning after the Magic weekend when there was back to back. Yeah, funny that. No, I think that game, that particularly not the Leeds whole game, but the Catalan St Helens game, when they shipped 18 points in 5 minutes, was just insane. One of the most insane games I've ever seen in 40 years. I think that gives Catalans the belief that they can go on. I still think St Helens are slight favourites.
The bookies are making them favourites.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've won it 2 years in a row. You look at the way they've played literally all season. You know, the way they've dismantled Leeds. I mean, Leeds did kind of well to kind of be in it for a bit. You know, they could have been beaten by 50 or 60. Yeah. But the form that Alex Walmsley's in and that forward pack, I mean, he's just destroying teams.
But I think the guy who's the most underestimated in that St Helens pack, which sounds ridiculous because he's the master of his craft and has been for 18 seasons, is James Roby.
Mm.
Because not only does he play the full 80 minutes now, but he has done for a long time, but he's still at his age playing the full 80 minutes. But if he didn't give Walmsley the service that he gets, the absolutely precise moment to give him the best ball, Walmsley would be less effective. Roby, to me, is the key. And I think your mentioning of that game at Magic, yes, it gives the Dragons the belief. I have a feeling it gives Saints the motivation to
it does
not let that happen again.
I think also, you mentioned Roby, but they are just such a well-oiled machine across the field. You know, you can talk about Coote at the back, you can talk about Makinson and Grace and the work they do off the ball, the finish, but also the meters, the way they start the sets, and then Nagama and Percival, the skill they have. I mean, Lewis Dodd, he's a superstar in the making. I think he'll be playing for England in the next 12 to 18 months.
Well, certainly should be playing for England Knights against Jamaica.
I mean, losing Theo Farge
but
and just the way
Lomax
that
slipped back into the team as if he'd never been away.
Yeah.
But the thing about Saints on...
And Morgan Knowles.
The thing about Saints on Friday that I think meant they were never going to be beaten, and why I think they're a threat, and Tompkins has to play for Catalan to drop Morg back onto the bench to give them something extra when he comes on, was the Saints substitutes. Because it's very rare that people come on and actually the intensity level is not only maintained but goes up.
I think we saw that in the Challenge Cup final. I mean, the work that McCarthy Scarsbrook and Kyle Amor are doing, the numbers they're posting, you know, they've not got
and then
a lot of recognition.
Wellesby, who can play anywhere, coming off the bench.
I mean, he's good enough to be starting at fullback, centre, 6, wherever, and virtually
Loose
every other
forward.
team. Yeah. I mean, he's just a talent. So yeah, I think Catalans have got their work cut out for them. But in saying that, they're also a very talented team with a lot of experience. James Maloney played in however many grand finals. He's won Origins. He's played for Australia.
Well, I think you look at their spine. If Tompkins plays, which I think he has to, he's been there, done that. Maloney, been there, done that. Drinkwater can control the game.
How did Drinkwater not get in the dream team? I mean, you look at his numbers.
Michael McAlorum.
I mean, the world's slowest intercept and try, but still, he got there.
You're looking at that spine.
It's great.
But I think you also do have to bring somebody off the bench who can change a game, because there'll be a period
where... Morg.
That's Morg and that's Wellesby. If Sam Tompkins doesn't play, I genuinely think Saints will win. And I think it might follow the same pattern as the Challenge Cup final. It'll be close at half-time, but they'll close it down.
I think he'll definitely play, whether he's injected up or what. And the fact they've got Morg on the bench, who is a fullback, you know, if after 10, 20 minutes he's struggling...
I just don't think you can go into a game like with a player that's... I'd rather you don't play a player that isn't fully fit.
I think he's that,
but if
that
he's
vital,
fit and he plays and he can exert influence on the game, Morg drops back to the bench, then I reckon it is anybody's game.
I think also someone who's been in probably career best form, at least since 2017 at Cass, is Mike McMeekin. You know, he's thrived.
Well, I also think that they've got more out of Julian Bousquet and Mikael Gudemond than they have had in previous. Whereas we talked very, very sketchy at the beginning of the programme about maybe the Wigan forwards haven't kicked on. Those two have. You know, Bousquet
look at Tom Davies, the form that he's in. And also, you talk about the forward pack. I think the question around Catalans at the start of the year in pre-season was they lost a lot of experience. They lost a lot of forwards. They lost Remy Castilla, Sam Miller. Falau went whatever Falau does. Plays park footy in the Gold Coast, whatever. Joins right wing parties. But you know they lost a lot of key experienced players, and I think that the thinking was they've gone too small. You know they might get bullied in the forwards.
And then they bring Cassiano off the bench.
But they've been the best team all year, haven't they? So,
the two teams have responded best to the rule changes.
Yeah.
Because they've got athletic players who can play long minutes and speed out a dummy half. And nobody does it as well as St Helens and Catalan do it. And I genuinely hope that we get a replica of Magic Weekend. I think we're more likely to get a game that is a bit like the Challenge Cup final. There'll be some flashes of absolute brilliance, but it'll be a bit like the NRL Grand Final. It'll be less points scored. It'll be a bit cagey.
I can't see either side being, winning by a big score. But,
no, I hope not.
Yeah, it should be a fantastic spectacle because they are the two best teams in the country.
Mark says Robbie is the man.
Well,
however,
in 2 countries.
Wellesby is the Stardust. Who's going to win the should be Rob Burrow medal, but it isn't.
You're asking 2 people if we're allowed to go who may be able to vote for it. I don't know.
Before the game's played, you want us to pick? Yeah,
I
Tompkins or Roby, there you go. Yeah,
I clearly think that if Catalan are going to win it, then Maloney will have had a big say in that. And I think that if Saints are going to win it, clearly Waltz is going to have had a big say in it. But they're only the odds that a bookie would give you. I don't know. There could be a star performer out of somewhere. I'm a massive admirer of Dean Farrell. I've always liked the way he played. I think when he came over at his absolute peak playing for New Zealand, he can do some special things. He's a great defender, but he's got wonderful hands. For all I know, he's going to be the man of the match because he's going to either score or set up 3 tries for his win.
His career was going so well at Manly until he went to Penrith, and that was the downhill.
But he's got something that he could,
Yeah.
like Percival can for St Helens, he could produce something out of nothing that could be the game breaker. I genuinely don't know.
I think the good thing about Catalans too, in previous years, it's always been the imports, whether it be Stacey Jones or Todd Carney or Steve Menzies. But there is, I think it's 15 out of that 27-man squad are French.
Absolutely.
And there's some really exciting young French players as well as some, Busquets, your Garcias, your Battieris, Phil Yaha. So that's great to see.
No odds on whether William McCarthy's Scarsbrook will swear on the telly though.
Short odds.
Yeah.
He'll be swearing in 4020 magazine for sure.
Will the Young Stars the final be made available to the media after game, or will they be shuttered off by the clubs? Asked JWL TV. I don't know. Are we having a mix on again?
We're not sure because at the end of this week, we're getting back to press conferences actually in the round. I don't think we'll get the same access as we've had in the past.
No.
The world has changed, viewer. John, thanks for coming in. Buy the balls, Patreon. Patreon thing.
Yeah, rugbyleaguehub.com on reads. Things on the internet.
Give me some money.
Yeah. Pay my deportation fee.
You've got to finish the magazine. Are you going to do the magazine this week?
It's a busy week. It's probably the busiest week of the year.
I'm going to write 2 magazines. Twice the amount of work.
Because of the deadlines and the fact that we go to print after the Featherstone to lose game, it's going to be hectic, but we love it. It'll all be reflected. Thank
goodness they mentioned Martin O'Fire beat the Chasers, because that's half my colour written. We'll be back at some point next week. I'm not exactly sure when yet. We won't be live, that is for sure, but we will be back next week to reflect on the grand finals. May the best teams win, whomever they are. But we'll find out what happens next week.